Hello everyone, we are back for some more speedrunning action for UKSG Summer 2021. Before we head in, we're just gonna say thank you to ESA for supporting this marathon. Besides providing us with their channel for streaming, they are sharing gear, technical assistance, and sponsors. So be sure to check out the next event, which is going to be ESA Summer 2021, which is happening from the 24th to the 31st of July, and I believe the runs will be announced today, so definitely worth keeping an eye on that. But for now, what we have got going on UKSG, we have got Cactus with Any Percent and Celeste, a game that I don't know, I think people have seen a lot of, but well, let's see what Cactus can bring to the table for Celeste. It's all over to you.
Right, yeah. Thank you very much. I'll just get a quick a countdown going for the time at the start, and then I'll start explaining things once we're into the prologue. So good to go in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good luck.
Thank you. And so the game starts off with this little prologue sequence where we don't have access to our dash yet. The main way that we will be able to traverse these levels is by jumping, dashing, and climbing to get around the different obstacles and platforms. And jumping is ever so slightly quicker than just walking, so each short hop that I do here is going to save 2 frames. But once we get to the next chapter, we'll have access to that dash then, and we'll be able to move a lot quicker than this. There's the cutscene skip there. And we'll go straight into City, which is our first chapter of the actual game. And you'll see straight away, well, we're climbing a mountain, so we're going to be going mostly up and right for this chapter. And the difference in speed just from having access to this dash now, we can jump, dash, and climb in all sorts of different combinations. The different movement techniques to get through as quick as we can. I'm using a lot of things called wall bounces here, which is where you dash up the side of a wall and then jump off it to give you a big height boost and get up quick. And as well as that, hyper dashing, which is where you dash into the ground and then jump like that to sort of propel yourself forward very quickly. Quite straightforward, this chapter. We'll see these things, they're called traffic blocks or zippers, and you stand on them and they will launch you up. And you can jump off them to get a bit of a momentum boost, but often it's quicker to just bypass them entirely. So we'll see here, we're going into this room, rather than use the zipper, we're just going to do a wave dash and get out. And again here, just do a hyper and a jump. Miss that entirely, it's quite a bit faster. And we're continuing just wave dashing and wall bouncing out of this chapter. Here we have Chasm Corner Boost, which I did get first try. Quite difficult and precise. It allows you to basically launch yourself over the spikes and get through that room quite quickly. And on top of that, doing the final room completely not the original intended solution, and just climbing up the side wall to exit as fast as we can. And pretty much as soon as it starts, City is finished, and we'll be going on in an old site now. And there's a couple of so each chapter kind of introduces us to a couple more mechanics. Some of them are specific to this chapter and we'll only see them here. There's a few that we'll see in the rest of the game as well. And as you can see here, dying is very, very fast in this game. Speedruns of Celeste tend to have a lot of deaths in them. And we won't be too worried about that because they don't lose too much time. A bit of a maybe glitch, I'm not sure, with the cutscene that I just skipped there. Where, because I skipped it in the air, when you skip a cutscene, it only warps your X position to where the cutscene ends, and my Y position stayed the same. So I could exit the cutscene already inside this dream block, which was a bit of a quicker way to exit. And these dream blocks, you sort of dash through them, and it spits you out the other side. They're pretty quick. And you'll see now, we're really getting into the story of the game. We're being chased by Madeline, so we are Madeline, and she is battling the bad version of us. And in this section of the game, she's chasing us on like a couple of seconds delay, which isn't a huge issue because of how quick we're moving, but we can get in before she follows us and make it out quickly. And the thing with those keys, we'll be seeing them quite a bit in the rest of the run. We need to grab all of them, and then it will move this block with a little blue dot on it and allow us to proceed through the chapter. It's just another way to sort of have to move around a room rather than just rush straight to the end of it. And you can buffer jumps out of these green jellies as well. You'll see I'm getting a bit of a jump each time I exit them, because it gives you a bit of a speed boost. And it's pretty much the fastest way to utilize them. Going into Awake now, this section of the game is like some of the fastest speed that you can get up to without being assisted by other things. By just chaining a lot of hyper dashes and ultras together, which is where you do a down diagonal out of a hyper. We'll see there. Oh, I actually managed to get them all. That's brilliant. And there. Exiting Old Site, another quite short chapter. And we're going into Resort next, which I think is where a lot of people who play this game, both casually and who have picked up the speedrun, will agree. There's quite a significant difficulty spike here. You see quite straight away, there's these fuzzy red things on a lot of the surfaces. They're called dust bunnies, and we'll see here, straight away I'm providing the example of this. But when you enter a room, they will be on a certain cycle that we're used to, and we can maneuver around them because we'll know exactly where we expect them to be. However, when you die and respawn, that cycle will be slightly offset because of the respawn animation. So you basically have to learn most of the screens in this chapter twice, one for when you enter it, and a second strat for if you do happen to unfortunately make a mistake and die. So because of that, there's a lot of really tight movement required to optimize this chapter. You know, you're sort of on a bit of a timer to like, are you able to squeeze through the room on this cycle, or are you going to have to like sit and wait for a dust bunny to move out of your way? So rather than like, you know, just micro bits of time saved from optimizing your movement, there's quite a lot of entire cycles that we need to be either skipping or making sure that we're not making too many mistakes and losing time unnecessarily. So here, for example, the death strat there is quite a bit slower. We have to jump up onto that platform and wait a bit for them to get out of the way before we continue. Here's some more of these coins. We just have to make our way through here and exit like so. So we've found our way. Huge mess, and as you can see, the hotel is very messy, and there's a bit of choice here in the order in which we can clear away this mess. I'm going down first to clear away the chest. Which are these brown boxes, these like green and blue books, and then the purple and white towels as well. So there's chests cleared away, and the reason that we route huge mess in this way is because the exits bring us out sort of the closest to where Ashiro is going to be when we need to speak to him before moving on to do the next bit of clearing up. And the routing that we do here would actually change depending on which category we're running, because there are some categories that require you get the blue crystal heart, which we're going to see below this screen. And if we need that heart, we do towels before books, because there's a death warp that you can do that skips a cutscene after that heart. But since we don't need it, it's quicker to just route this in the way that brings us out closest to Ashiro. And here we are, going to towels next, and this is probably my least favourite section of the whole chapter. It's quite difficult, especially in this room. You sort of have to go straight away so you can get under that dust bunny at the side there, and then do a super, which is similar to a hyper, but you're trading off less horizontal speed for more vertical height to get out and over the top. And we've made it through towels without dying, which is certainly better than most of my runs go of this chapter, so that's quite exciting. And now that we've cleared away all this mess, we have access to this key, which we need to grab. bring it all the way up here to exit this section, speak to Oshiro once more. There's another, not quite glitch, but it certainly looks like one, coming up at the end of this section, where, if you look at the little dust bunnies, specifically the walls of dust bunnies that you see here, though it looks like it's one continuous hitbox, they're actually made up of lots of small circular hitboxes that have a small gap in between them. And that gap is 4 pixels, which, luckily for us, is the exact same height as Madeline when she is crouching. So what we can do here is get a pixel line up on this wall and do a demo dash or crouch dash and just go right the way through those. And that skips about 20 seconds worth of platforming where we have to go into a load of different screens and find a key. But instead, with the pixel line up on the wall and then getting the pixel perfect dash through, we can make it out. Here is the end of the hotel. Madeline has shown back up in that cutscene that we just missed and made Mr. Oshiro very angry. And now he is going to chase us away from his hotel. We've got to worry about 2 different cycles here, and that's the cycle of the moving dust bunnies in the screens that have them, and also the cycle for when Oshiro is going to chase after us. So this is really a one where if you die on one of these screens, it's going to probably throw you into a bit of a mess trying to figure out what the best cycle to be on is. So hopefully I intend to just get all the way through this section without dying, and if I do, then we'll see that, you know, the death strats are quite a bit less optimal than your first entry. Here's the final screen. Certainly one of the most difficult screens in the entire run, not just this chapter. And yeah, it looks like we're going to be making it out without a death on Oshiro, so pretty pleased with that.
Very nicely done. Do we just have a little moment to read out a donation?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So we have $10 from, I hope I'm saying this right, Cararian or Cararian?
Cararian, yeah. Yeah,
Cararian,
I know
there we
Cararian,
go,
yeah.
saying, always love seeing one of my favourite platformers and games being shown off by amazing speedrunners and people like Cactus. Zoom up that mountain, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It was Cararian?
Yeah, Cararian, yeah.
Cararian, there we go. Alright. Yeah,
I think so, at least I hope so, yeah. Thank you very much, really appreciate that, Carrie. Yeah, Cararium, she's another Celeste speedrunner. Fantastic streamer, I really enjoy her content, yeah. So no, thank you very much, Carrie, appreciate that.
One thing I will just quickly mention as well is that we've been having a little bit of issues here or there with Twitch. Apparently they are suffering from a bit of playback issues, so if anything is happening on stream, I'm afraid that is something that is out of our control at the moment, but I mean, from here, it looks like you're doing an incredible job, so keep it up, Cactus. Alright,
thank you very much. And yeah, so now we're getting into Golden Ridge, which is the next chapter, which contains everybody's absolute favourite platforming mechanic, which is wind. You'll have noticed at the end of that room there I did what's called a spike jump, and basically in this game spikes can only kill you if you're moving towards them. So if you approach a spike from behind, you can do a wall jump off of it, and it allows you to get a bit of height in some places where you wouldn't normally be able to go. And as well as the wind, there's a few more mechanics we're introduced to here, which are these clouds, which are like these sort of trampoline platforms that we can use to bounce around, as well as these auto-scroller blocks, which once we activate them, will start moving in a straight line, and we can just, some of them have buttons on that allow us to control where they're going, but other than that, you just need to wait around for them to exit some rooms sometime. There is a way to skip that auto-scroller, but I was messing it up quite a lot in practice, and it's a sub-pixel dependent trick, so I decided to forgo it for this marathon. But we did get a bit of a boost from it. You'll see I like pressed right up against it before dashing off it, and that's because your momentum's not capped in this game, so any input that you make while on a moving platform, that platform's momentum will get added to yours and allow you to get even more speed. So here we go. Into the next auto. Scroller room of this chat, boosting momentum from that block. Oh, I've not. Didn't quite get all the momentum I needed, but you can get a bit of a needle thread here by waiting for the right. Oh dear. Never mind. I'll just take this as intended. It's a bit of a difficult strat, and it loses quite a bit of time if you die to it. But yeah, what I was trying to do there was get a bit of a momentum boost from it before exiting the room, but instead we can just get this key and then wait up here for the block and then use it to exit the room like so. And here's the last room of Old Trail, which is the section of the chapter. Again, there's a bit of a cycle skip we can get from the wind there by doing a wall bounce. And this brings us into Cliff Face, which is my favourite part of this chapter. The wind picks up speed quite a lot, and there's quite a few exciting ways that you can get through these screens quickly. Your dashing speed is actually unaffected by wind, so by dashing a lot we can move in a way where the wind is pretty much not causing us any issue at all, and just sort of, oh dear. Cliff Face does also introduce these snowballs, which are very irritating. They're not RNG, they're on a cycle, and they will fire at your Y position at certain intervals, and they're by far the most annoying thing about this whole chapter. So we'll see here. Again, similar to other things, your entry cycle and your death cycle will be a bit different, because your movement will be at slightly different speed getting to where the snowballs start shooting at you. We've managed to make it through. That's the end of the snowballs, at least for this chapter. And I just did an ultra out of that bubble, which again is a wave dash followed by a down diagonal dash, which allows us to skip a bit of the platforming. And yeah, we'll be exiting Golden Ridge now, which in terms of chapters, this is about the halfway point of the run. There's 7 chapters, and we've just finished the 4th one. But in terms of time, as we get on, the chapters get quite a bit longer, so we're not quite reaching the halfway point time-wise yet. And here we go into Mirror Temple. This chapter's very long, and it allows us to talk a bit about routing in the speedrun. So every chapter in Celeste has a B-side, which is a more difficult remix of the chapter that's often shorter, and because of how long Mirror Temple is, and how early we can have access to this B-side, it's actually optimal to go and grab that tape and then complete the B-side and unlock Chapter 6 that way. It's quite a lot harder than just completing the Temple A side, so newer runners tend to probably not go for that. And really, you can speedrun this game in whatever way you want. It's very beginner friendly, it's very accessible, because of how non-punishing deaths tend to be. You can pretty much just pick this game up and start speedrunning it the day after you finish it casually, which is what I did. And then gradually over time start learning more and more difficult things. I was going for a trick in that last room called DCB, or Depth's Corner Boost, and I unfortunately missed the corner boost, but you will have saw I got the big boost of momentum from that block to fling all the way across that room, which is the fastest way to travel through those screens. Concentrating for a second there, get that cycle skip, but as you can see, each of these cassettes is in like a rhythm block sort of room, and that's the only cycle in this game that's based on RTA rather than IGT, because those blocks are linked to the music rather than anything else. So yeah, we get through that, unlock Temple B side, and we go straight in to this chapter. What you will notice straight away about B-sides is that there is pretty much no floor, and there are spikes on absolutely every surface that you're not supposed to touch. So immediately we'll be able to see that, well, why this is a more difficult choice than just finishing the rest of Temple A. But the reason it's so much quicker is due to 2 pretty large skips, the first one coming up at the end of this room. That's called Bub's Drop, and what I did there was I used pausing and jumping to frame advance the game and get a short wall jump as soon as I entered that room, and that allowed me to cancel the short little jump that you automatically get when you enter a room from the bottom and pop back down. And the game doesn't expect us to be able to do that, so it doesn't know where to respawn us. So if I just hit retry as soon as I do that, then it will put us at the end of the room because that's the closest spawn point, and it skips having to go through a load of screens and get a key. And again, just there, we've done a spike jump to get up that column, which we normally wouldn't be able to do, and get through here without having to find another key. Version of the temple now, with these horrible squiggly red things everywhere instead of spikes, and we're looking for Theo. We need to go rescue him, basically. And we're introduced to these very fun creatures called Seekers, and there is no RNG to them, even though it certainly feels like it sometimes. We have to manipulate them in ways to allow us to get through rooms way quicker than intended, especially here, where I can sort of just use the boost that you get from bopping one and him waking back up to just completely skip how you're supposed to do this room. And here we go. We found Theo. He's trapped inside this crystal. I believe in the story it's some sort of metaphor for vanity because he's always taking selfies, but either or. Now we have to get him out. So there's this little escort section where we've got to carry this crystal all the way to the end of the chapter. And again, this is the gauntlet room, which is probably a lot of people's least favourite part of 5B, where there's these 4 little rooms where we're not getting a checkpoint in between all of them, and we have to basically deal with a Seeker and also press a button to unlock the next bit. Oh dear. I was off cycle for a lot of that, and a bit scared, but we made it. And here's these sections where we just have to kind of, again, we don't really have a floor, and we have to juggle Theo through these rooms and hit all these keys to exit. This one's clearly impossible. We don't even need the platform. Oh no. We don't need the platforms here. We can just sort of go into these crystals, which I don't think I mentioned, but they replenish your dash without you having to land on the ground. The B-sides each also end with a rhythm rune, like the cassette rune, and we can use that to quickly... Oh dear. Go for an RTM after we get that heart. And that allows us to exit the level. Each B-side gives you a red heart at the end rather than ending normally. And we don't see any cutscenes, but what's going on now is we've rescued Theo, and we're making our way to the top of the mountain. Like, this cutscene would lead you to believe we're pretty much there, even though, in terms of IGT, we're probably just about beyond the halfway point of the run. So, what's going to happen? This introduces us to these feathers, which are quite awkward to control, especially on keyboard, where rather than just sort of like up, down, left and right, and diagonals, they have analog movement to them. And in that cutscene that we just skipped there, what happened was Badeline caught up to us, and she has knocked us all the way down to the bottom of the mountain, where we meet the next new mechanic of this chapter, which is these Kevin blocks. They're called Kevin blocks, named after the sound designer from this game, Kevin, who is the person who recorded that little grumbling noise that they make whenever you dash into them. Kevin blocks move really quickly, so there's some very cool momentum things that we can do later on to get a lot of speed from them. We also have to...
Kevin.
Shout outs to Kevin, absolutely. So here we go, using this one to launch us up and out. And we can talk about routing again here, because it's also technically optimal to go and get the cassette and do the B-side for Chapter 6, but that's really hard, and I'm not very good at it. And it's only really needed at top level, so I don't do that. So that was probably the fastest speed that we get up to in the entire run. We're doing an ultra, boosted by the Kevin's momentum, to kind of allow us to just fly all the way to the end of that screen. And Hollow, as the section that I'm in now, is one of probably the most difficult parts of the run, and also certainly one of my least favourites, so I'm going to be concentrating, and if you have anything you'd like to read, now would be a really good time for that.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, everybody, just a reminder that we are raising money to support Crisis, a charity supporting people out of homelessness for good. They achieve this through education, training, and support with housing, employment, and health. So 100% of your donations will be supporting Crisis. Just one of the examples of how they help people out is with housing. They do this by working with landlords to ensure a supply of places to live for those who don't have anywhere to go, and giving homeless people the tools and knowledge they need to rent successfully. Their Housing Resource Centre provides information and training for housing professionals. The Help to Rent database lists private sector renting schemes across the UK. So that's just one of the many ways that they help out. So keep the donations rolling in. We are currently at $445. Very good. So yeah, keep that up, people. And Cactus, keep this up. This is a very good run.
Thank you. So we're making it to the last room of Hollows now. this has a cycle skip that I unfortunately messed up there that's quite difficult, that you can only get on entry. So instead we'll be doing the death cycle, which is quite a bit more straightforward, so we just have to get this feather and then exit like that. And yeah, that's the end of Hollows, which is certainly a very difficult checkpoint to do. And again, you'll see in this chapter, rather than climbing up the mountain, we're working our way down. We're trying to find battle and figure out what's going on. And you can see this is her hair that we're kind of just following now. We're getting close. This long falling room has these like thin gaps between the spikes, which are like dev intended shortcuts that we can take. I take the first one and the third one, but not the second one, because missing the second one, first of all, it doesn't really lose all that much time, and second of all, it means that you get a checkpoint just before the third one, and the third one, I find at least, doesn't have as consistent a setup as the other two, so I prefer to do it that way. And again, if I get it, here is another example of how we can get ridiculous momentum from these Kevin blocks. So, by jumping in a certain way, we can preserve that momentum all the way through that room, and then immediately die, and then start the fight. And this is the boss fight. So we found Badeline, and we're now going to chase her, basically. So this is a really cool way to do a boss fight in a platformer, where she's at the other end of the room shooting at us, and we basically have to maneuver around her lasers and bullets, and also use the platforms to get to her as quickly as possible. Similar to the rest of the game, it's just a checkpoint every time you get into a new screen, but because each of these screens contains, you know, a handful of different puzzles where we have to like hit her and then see where she goes to next. Deaths can be quite punishing here. There's a few long screens. But yeah, as you can see, on a lot of the screens we can move quick enough that she doesn't actually get a chance to shoot at us, which is quite handy. But on the ones where she does, similar to with Ashiro and similar to with Badeline from Chapter 2, if we just are doing the same movement every time, then we can expect where she's going to be shooting at us at each point in the room, and we can route around that because we have some sort of consistency to it. This is one of the few rooms where the death cycle is easier than the first one. We actually hit each other at the same time there, what happened there, which is a very unfortunate way to die twice, but the death cycle is not too bad there, so it's not too worried about that. Here, however, this room has a very annoying death cycle that's quite slow, so it's good to get through that first try. But yeah, as you can see, quite long and difficult rooms here, where we're sort of on a bit of a tight cycle, trying to make sure that we can get her before she shoots us each time. And that's phase 1 of the fight done. So now there's this cutscene here, where she's basically trying to convince us not to climb the mountain still. And we're gonna say no. So the second part, there's even more cycles to worry about, as well as her shooting at us. We've got these moving blocks now, which are sort of going to interrupt our movement and make us be on even tighter cycles to get some movement, like that one I just got there, which requires bouncing off those platforms as they're rising and falling. We're going to cycle skip here to get straight to that platform and get that boost up to her. And we're coming towards the end of the fight now. This is probably my least favourite room in the fight. It's this long falling room that you can't really do especially quickly, and because of how long it is, if you die right at the end here on that dash, it's very punishing. And this is the last room. It's quite long, but again, because of how many times I've done it, I can be pretty convinced that I'm on a cycle that I'm comfortable with and not have to worry about her shooting where I'm dashing. So we've done it. We have beat Badeline. And now, so this is the final checkpoint. You'll notice we can dash twice. So what happened in that cutscene, if memory serves me right, is we've convinced Badeline to help us climb the mountain now. So she is who is allowing us to do this second dash, and it's going to continue on into the next chapter. We're going to reach this summit now with the help of Badeline using 2 dashes. So yeah. That is chapter 6, all done and dusted, and going on at the summit. But again, at the end of Reflection, we got knocked right back to the bottom of the mountain. So we need to start the whole climb again now. We're going into the final chapter now, but it's slightly longer than the rest of them, so there's probably around about 9 or 10 minutes left on this run, depending on how Summit goes. But as you can see, having the 2 dashes really changes the way that we can move around these screens. We can afford to have quite a bit less time spent on the ground and just sort of be dashing through the air and using both of these dashes to skip significant parts of rooms. Each of the sections of Summit ends with one of these sort of escape rooms where we're dashing into Badeline and she's helping us climb out, and there's a cutscene in between each one. And we see a callback to each of the chapters from the game now. So we're starting in the Summit section of City. So you'll remember we have these traffic blocks, and the music changes slightly to reflect the track from City as well. I've not really talked about the music much in this game, but it's all absolutely phenomenal. Huge shout outs to Lena Rain, she is a very talented musician, and also to all of the artists who made the B-side remixes, because each of the B-sides has a remix of the original track made by a different artist, and they're all also fantastic. So yeah, the music in this game is absolutely phenomenal.
I've got to say, I'm very much a believer that if a game looks and sounds good, I know that the gameplay of this is incredible, but I think they're works of art in their own right.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe Celeste had quite a good sort of, well, I don't know whether they still do have a good connection with their speedrunners.
Yeah, no, the Celeste dev team is very involved in the speedrunning community. They're quite aware of what the speedrunners are up to, and they follow it quite closely. And whereas what you normally expect to see in games is it's a bit of a speedrunners against devs idea, where, you know, speedrunners are trying to break the game and the devs are trying to stop them from doing it by getting rid of glitches. Because Celeste is built for speedrunning, and I believe like a lot of the dev team are very keen on speedrunning themselves, Celeste, the devs very much work with the speedrunners, and rather than sort of looking for glitches and ways to break the game, a lot of the speed strats that I'm doing are either completely intended, or once they were discovered, the devs left that in and sort of celebrated that the speedrunners have found stuff like that. Like, for example, what happened earlier when I went into Chapter 5B, if I remember right, I believe that was initially an oversight that completing the B-side unlocked the next chapter, but when the devs realized that it allowed the speedrun routing to be a lot more interesting, they left it in, so that speedrunners can continue to change the game and change the way that it's routed and played. And again, like we saw in Chapter 3, here's another demo dash to go through those spikes, which is another example of where the devs have really sort of worked hand in hand with the speedrunning community. Prior to early 2021, you had to, on PC at least, use third-party software to set up a keybind to allow you to do a crouch dash, or you had to do a lot of very precise inputs to be able to do it manually. But the devs recently added like an in-game menu crouch dash bind to completely eliminate that need and allow it to be just more accessible for people to do the tech that this game is required. So yeah, no, the devs absolutely are big fans of the Celeste speedrunning community and have been a massive help in order to like keep this a really fun and you know, sort of well rooted and well optimized speedrun, because like they're working with us and celebrating what speedrunners are doing rather than working against them, whereas like, you know, some games they kind of don't really like that speedrunners are looking for glitches and ways to break their game. The Celeste devs encourage speedrunning as like, you know, a very valid way to play this game, and all of the rooms are rooted with you know, several different ways to beat them. Like all the things that I'm doing here, skipping sections of platforming by using the advanced movement mechanics, are all things that the devs have rooted in, and none of these are really unintended solutions to rooms. They're just not the slowest intended solution to a room. So we're supposed to escort that block all the way to the end of this room, but it's pretty slow doing that, so instead we're gonna not do that. Oh. Thankfully I reacted to not getting the wall bounce, and we can make it out without dying. And again, you can see, like, it's no coincidence that the gaps in the spikes are put in that way. Like, doing this room without the block was completely something that the devs had in mind when they designed it. Oh my goodness. That's terrifying. I nearly slipped into the spikes. But no, we're making quite good time here, just exiting the Golden Ridge callback of Summit. And approaching Mirror Temple now.
So I've been seeing a lot of people in the chat sort of talking about the early game being particularly rough, and just in general the chat's really out in support for this run. Is that something that you can get behind? I think you mentioned it a little bit at the start of the run, that its start game is sort of,
yeah, I think
it's deceiving how hard it is in a speedrun.
I think in a way definitely, because, you know, in your casual playthrough they will absolutely be the easiest levels that you face, but especially City and Sight, because they're so short, any time loss feels absolutely devastating to get in a run. So those chapters have really been pushed to like the absolute limit. And then Resort coming up third, you know, some people consider that maybe the hardest chapter in the entire run. And I would say that, like, I don't know if I feel that way at the minute, but there have definitely been times where I've agreed. I think each chapter has, like, you know, its own different difficulties. But no, the early game is quite brutal in Celeste. I think if you're trying to sort of squeeze as much time save as you can out of it. And then the late game as well. I think the thing with Summit is, because of how long it is, it's very difficult to be consistent in this chapter more than anything. You know, so if there's a lot of opportunities for you to die, the movement feels very different because you've got these two dashes rather than just working with one. But yeah, I think I'd agree that the early chapters, certainly, a lot of runners will try and squeeze as much time save as they can out of them because of how early they come into the run and how easy it is to just sort of try again if you don't quite get the run started that you want. And just like that, we've now made it into the home stretch of the run. So this is 3,000 meters, the final checkpoint. Rather than being checkpointed by rooms, we have these 30 flags, which we're going to be marking our progress to finally reaching the summit now. Time will be coming up in just under 3 minutes, if you would like an estimate for that. That's 3 minutes IGT. It'll be maybe a slight difference for RTA, because even within the chapter, so dashing actually lags the IGT timer by 2 frames every time you dash, 2 or 3 frames I believe. So there's a slight desync between IGT and RTA that you will notice in this run, especially like most noticeably because menuing completely pauses the in-game timer. But yeah, I've just finished Downdraft, which is, I think, probably the hardest section of 3K. And that brings us through into Updraft, where the wind is now pushing us upwards and everything's a lot more floaty, and there's a lot of sort of moving through the air here to kind of float your way to the top of the mountain. And what we're seeing, I think, similar themes to what you see in the B-sides of earlier chapters here, where there's a distinct lack of floor and a lack of safe ground to stand on. More or less, everywhere that there is safe ground, there is a flag marking a checkpoint, and then there is a lot of difficult platforming to get to the next checkpoint. Especially flag 14, the one I've just finished, and flag 13, this one, are very long, and dying here is quite a bit of time loss. So I was going for a skip there that skips a dash crystal by allowing you to just do a neutral jump, which is where you jump without holding a direction to get over those spikes, just like that. And then climbing up that wall. And then here we've got this sort of kind of just going along the line, dashing through these spikes. And we've reached flag 9 here, and we're actually going to not even bother to collect flag 8 because it's out of the way and we can just go straight up to this cloud and get flag 7. And yeah, this brings us into probably about the final 45 seconds to a minute of the run, depending on whether or not I take a death here or not. The last 6 flags. No wind here, it's just sort of getting around the spikes and getting to the top. It's very easy to get greedy and aggressive here by having really tight lines with these feathers and getting close to the spikes, but it's a certainly very scary thing to do. And again, I went for a really risky diagonal there, bonked into a wall, but managed to save it by jumping, which is quite good. Because dying sort of on these bits where there's a lot of distance between the flags is not what you want. That's flag 1, so we are now reaching the end of the run. Time will be when I hit the flag. Oh no, not a flag 1 there, not in a marathon. Time will be coming up when I skip the cutscene at the top of the summit, and I'll let you know when that happens, but it'll be very soon. And that's time.
GG. Nicely done.
Thank you. I'm not sure what that was RTA, because I can't see, but IGT, that was a 35-34, which is fairly good going, especially for a marathon where I'm having to think about what I'm saying and everything as well. And here's the pie screen at the end, a very disappointingly empty strawberry pie, because I wasn't collecting any strawberries on this run. But no, there we go. That is Celeste any percent, and I've been a Cactus. A Twitch channel is Cactus SB. All I do is stream this game at the minute. I absolutely adore this game. It's my favorite game. I play a lot of different categories. I've been focusing on any percent recently because primarily this marathon, but also the Celeste community are running an any percent tournament that starts next week, and there's going to be lots of hype matches that people are going to see over on the Celeste community Twitch channel as well. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed what you saw, please do drop me a follow on Twitch. I stream this game almost every day, and I love talking about it as well. So if you want to get into this game, if you've enjoyed watching me play it and want to have a go yourself, like, come ask me questions. There's a lot of very helpful people in the Celeste community, and it's a very lovely place. Thank you all. That's all from me. If you have anything you want to say to sign off, anything else to read out?
I'd just say brilliant run, and it seems like everybody absolutely loved the run, and it seems like you've got a very good community behind you, and it's nice to hear the Celeste any percent. Is that coming up soon? I might have completely missed the date for that.
The any percent tournament. So sign-ups have closed, and we're sort of moving into the bracket now, but that starts next week, and there's 100 of us who have entered. I've entered, and like a lot of the Celeste speedrunners who might be in chat right now will have entered or will know stuff about it as well. But the Celeste community Twitch channel are going to be restreaming some matches from that, and it's going to be really hype. It's really getting a lot of people really, really passionate about grinding this game, which has been fantastic to see. I've been, in Discord calls with some of my friends just doing like any percent runs, sort of like racing against each other, doing a lot of no reset stuff to get consistency up. And it's just been like a lot of fun, and it's a really cool thing that the community are doing to sort of get a lot of excitement injected into running any percent right now. And yeah, I do appreciate all of the support coming through in chat as well. I've not really been able to keep an eye because I've been focusing on playing a very input-heavy game and also talking about it at the same time. But thank you all so much for coming through as well. And I am going to be donating £1 per death for this run. So was that 53? Yeah, it's so again, if anyone else wants to support Crisis, they're doing fantastic work trying to end homelessness in the UK, which is a very important cause. So yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. And Cactus is going to be signing off. I'm going to be signing off too. It has been a great time hosting these runs. So we are going to be handing over to the DM Panda next. He's going to be hosting the next couple of runs, and the next run is going to be with the Jack of Hearts playing Wargroove All Puzzles. That is coming very shortly, folks. Stay around, and yeah, we will see you in the chat hopefully.
Thank you.